Anthony Moyles is with us in studio. Anthony, there is a new unstoppable juggernaut in town, and it has a gold and green trim.
It certainly has, Cher. Yeah, they were brilliant yesterday. I felt, really felt it. I thought everything about them was good. They were tenacious, they were aggressive, they battled right till the end. Right from the get-go, they had just an unbelievable sense of kind of like, this is our day. Now, Mayo were very, very poor, but they were they were just fully on it. I really, really think so. I'm a bit slightly worried because maybe they've shown their hand, but at the same time, you go, is that hand actually able to be stopped? That's the problem.
And the other thing is that, like, it's as you say, it's well and good knowing what somebody's going to do, but like, okay, Clifford's going to try and beat me for pace, and then he beats me for pace because what am I going to do? And like, he also has the peripheral vision to be able to see if there are multiple players on him, he's going to be able to find the pass. And as Owen made the point earlier on, we still have Sean O'Shea to come back into the team. We were having a debate a bit earlier about how much you can read into Mayo's performance. The defensive structure seemed very vanilla. It didn't seem like they were doing anything that they would actually do if this was a championship game. Yeah,
I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because obviously they've got Galway coming up in a few weeks' time. There were a few players, who obviously didn't start yesterday, and a few players to come back in. But at the same time, okay, I think you can look at it two ways. Horan won't be overly worried, but at the same time, he's trying to say to himself, right, well, there's fellas then that definitely didn't put their hand up. There's guys who come into the game yesterday who you would have felt, right, it's championship goal time, and these guys should be pushing. But fellas just rolled over. Now, does the structure, as in a defensive structure, does that help you? Like, I mean, do they end up giving the likes of O'Hora a bit of help and a bit of assistance and crowd things out? Of course they do. They're going to have to try something different, because evidently going one-on-one with Clifford or his ilk doesn't work. But where the lack of potency up front has been an issue for them all year, and again it has proved their Achilles heel. Bar O'Donoghue, they don't really have anyone who's standing out. They will get Diarmuid O'Connor back. Cillian O'Connor, I'm not so sure. I think people have kind of putting their hopes on him for the year. I think that's fanciful, to be honest with you. He came on, and actually the goalkeeper, Ryan, at one stage soloed the ball away from him. He actually was soloing, and O'Connor couldn't keep up, and O'Connor kind of actually just passed him on to someone else. So, I just think, yeah, he's still a very, very good, accurate forward inside and stuff, but I don't think he's a guy you're going to build a team around. So I think Mayo have issues, and the issue is that guys haven't pushed on from the start of the league. They haven't put their hand up. Like, Orm comes on yesterday, and if you watch him, he's on the field maybe 15 minutes maximum. He's actually at the very, very last goal, Foley's goal. He's the most offensive forward. Foley's marking him, and as soon as the play breaks down, Foley takes a run, and Orm kind of half-tracks him, thinking, he's going to stop. And next thing, Foley gets on the end of it and scores a goal. Now, that shows me two things. It shows me, one, that Orm, if I'm watching that on the video and I'm Horan, I'm going, okay, that is an absolute disgrace, because you're just on the pitch. It doesn't matter whether you're being bet by 20 points or you're 2 points in it. You have to make sure that player is tracked. You're fresh. You're well able to do it. And the second thing, from a Kerry point of view, is it shows the intention, it shows the desire, and it shows the willingness to go and absolutely bury Mayo, even in the 73rd or 74th minute.
The goal shouldn't have stood, obviously. It was square ball. Thought it was nip and tuck anyway at best. But there's a lot of interesting things in there. Like, the Mayo defensive system, like say if we're kind of like burying yesterday or the league in total and saying Mayo will have something new if they come up against Kerry this year, or a good forward line. Why haven't they worked on that something new during the league? Is that not the
Did they not do another game,
where you're supposed to?
Did they not do another game?
To a certain extent, but like, I mean, they were, say if you're the Tralee example, for example, it was himself and O'Hora and Mullen who took turns on Clifford, with Aidan O'Shea dropping a little bit deeper. Like, was that the experiment? And then yesterday they were like, okay, we're going to stop that experiment. It feels like yesterday would have been a perfect time to experiment, basically, to try and set up a defensive system that they were sorely lacking.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think they've really struggled at 6 all year. I think 6 has been a major issue for them. Stephen Cohen was there yesterday. He was tagged to pick up Paddy Clifford, and Clifford literally gave him a masterclass, because Cohen was in this kind of strange position of, he was man marking him, but he wasn't getting close enough to really influence the game and really influence Clifford. And neither was he sitting back in the pocket and he was saying, well, listen, you go get the ball, don't worry about it. You kick it in here to your brother, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to double up with O'Hora. So he was caught in that no man's land. He wasn't influencing the game enough. Then what they did was they put Keegan out on Paddy Clifford, and Keegan did a proper job on him in the sense of, look, the game was probably dead, but if you watch the game back, he really went everywhere with him. Even when Clifford was trying to drop further and further and further back to influence the game from a Kerry point of view, Keegan stayed with him, stayed within touching distance all the way along. I think that's what they're going to probably do, Owen, in the sense of it's not so much more of a defensive structure, it will be individuals on individuals. And maybe yesterday they realised, okay, that guy can't do that job, so who can do that job? They've still got Keegan, Durkin, Mullen and O'Hora. There's 4 defenders who are very athletic, very well capable of marking people from a one-on-one position, and then they can kind of mix in and around that. But I think 6 is a major issue if they play like they played yesterday. Like they tried Aidan O'Shea there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up bringing Aidan O'Shea back from 11 and having him in as a double 6. He's a big man, he can fill the space. Obviously, he's physically big enough that if traffic starts coming around, he can hit a few lads, he can get his body in the way, and then he's quite good at linking the play when he comes forward. And I thought that worked well for them in the league, and I was kind of surprised that they abandoned it a bit yesterday. But I think, you know what, he has more than one eye on the Galway game, and he was saying to himself, but at the same time, it was still a trophy. It was still, in Croke Park, and I was still against a team that you potentially are going to come up against later in the year. So to give them an opportunity to put whatever it was, 3 goals and a rake of points on you is not the best, even from a psychological point of view.
We were talking about that, like never give a sucker an even break. Kerry's record against Mayo in recent years, not great. Kerry's record in big games, not great. But now all of a sudden, Clifford is back being a schools champion, a minor champion in Croker, and he owns the place, and he has this feeling of the sun in his back, and he's 10 Tigers.
Yeah, and people are going on about the Sledge. I wouldn't be surprised if I think I heard you saying it on right. I wouldn't be surprised if Clifford started, but Clifford is no angel, and we spoke about this earlier on in the year. The boy has turned into a man now, so he's like. Personally, I never was into sledging. I think sledging takes your focus off the game. You're either a sledger or you're not, kind of thing. And I don't think it can be manufactured, I think it is something that you're either you do since you were kind of, under 6s or under 8s, or you just don't do it,
Otherwise it sounds terrible.
It's a very difficult thing to do because, you're concentrated. You should be 100% concentrated on next ball. And O'Hora actually didn't do a bad job on it. Now, I know people go, he's got 1-5 from play, but he won another. He was on his own with 30 yards ahead of him, and balls being pinpointed in at him.
What's
going,
break even? Like, what is break even?
Not that,
it is, isn't it? Anything less than that, and you're like, that was brilliant. Because
if he doesn't score a goal, you're saying O'Hora did a good job.
Well, I remember marking Johnny Doyle when Johnny was absolutely in his pomp, I think, in a Leinster semi-final, and I was 6, Johnny was 11, and I said to myself, if I keep Johnny to 6 here, 6 to 7, maybe maximum 8, I think I've done a pretty good job. Because, he's on freeze, and I think he got 6 that day. But I was thinking, yeah, that's a big win for me. Now, if someone looks at me and go, Jesus, Moyles must have got a roast, So, bar the goal. Now, he did have a couple of other goal chances, which could have been 2-7, 2-8. But I tell you one thing he did, which shows a maturity, I think, from him and for Kerry. There was about 50-odd minutes gone. I think O'Connor had just been black-carded. And there was a bit of a sense of Mayo. They had tagged on a couple of good scores. They had just hit the post, I think, with McLaughlin. They had the free after the black card, and I think there was 5 or 6 in it, and they put a major press on the next kick out, a major press. There was a feeling of, okay, Kerry are down to 14. If they get the next kick out and get a score, maybe they can get things going a bit. And Ryan put an absolute howitzer of a kick out right down the middle of the pitch, and one of the Mayo lads just missed it. He tried to come across and intercept it, and he just missed it. It went to a Kerry guy. He passed it across to Clifford, and that was the one, if you remember, where he took O'Hora on the outside. He turned him inside out, and he stuck it over with his left foot. Now, that score was him basically just saying, no, not today. That's it. It's, you know, there's an X on this game and we're going to win it. And it was a maturity. It was a thing of where he just said, look, give me the ball. I'll take it on my own shoulders and I'll do the rest. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
That passage of play that you mentioned there is also why I don't think we can throw out all of yesterday. I think we can take parts from it. And as you say, they get the free to bring it back to 6, I think it was, immediately after that black card. And that kick out, there was massive pressure then. It's like, you can disregard everything from Shane Ryan throughout the game. It's those 10 minutes is what you judge him on. I think he nailed everything. Kerry win that passage of play 4-0, I think.
That's right. Well, I don't think Mayo scored. When O'Connor came back on, I don't think Mayo got another point. So there you are at 14 versus 15, you know, and they talk about it in rugby. Obviously, a player being sin bin or whatever it is, that's your time to try and get, you know, scores on the board. Like, if anything, Kerry beat them and should have beaten them by more in that 10-minute period. But Ryan was absolutely, like, his prowess from kickouts, his ability to come out, because he came out more yesterday than he'd kind of ever come out. And he wasn't just coming out and slowly coming out. He was putting injection into the pace. He was kicking some nice passes. Yeah, I thought he had a really, really good game.
So I'm not throwing out what Kerry did, but I think Mayo will come back and they'll be a better team in Croke Park. But this Kerry team are cresting now the years and years of underage dominance that they've had. The boys have become men. Like, it really is their All-Ireland to lose from this point.
I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, if you know, if you had a couple of spare houses, you'd be putting it on it. Like, I think it's that. I know you won't appreciate me on saying this, but okay, you will get a bolter. Will Tyrone get their act together? Will Tyrone fancy themselves? But, you know, Tyrone have to come through the Ulster. It's set up, it really is. Like, everyone's kind of saying Dublin, and Dublin may improve, but I still don't feel that Dublin have... When I look at Kerry, you have... The question mark we would have had last year was the defensive capabilities. And it wasn't even that there was bad defenders, because they have some absolutely top-class defenders. But it was just the structure of where to be, who to pick up. And they were giving up simple, easy, stupid scores. And they were also fouling fellas in and around the D. Stupid fouls where hands were coming in, and a little bit of panic. Yesterday there was no sense of that, and even during the league there was no sense of that. Morley, I think, is playing the football of his career. I was saying it to Owen earlier, he's dropping off. He's able to play that 6 role unbelievably well. If you have rewatched the game, the amount of ball that he cut out from a position where Mayo guys were looking up, trying to hit the inside forward, and next thing he would come out of nowhere and just intercept the ball. He also knows when to attack and when to drop off. He knows when to add that person. He looks around. If he sees runners going, he just stands off and he sits back in. Foley's playing unbelievably well, has really matured physically, and is a dominant force now in that full back line. You know, the other guys, and then you get White back. Like, he was absolutely ridiculous yesterday. I thought there was something wrong with my remote control. I thought it was stuck on like plus 64, the speed he runs at. Like, he was leaving lads for dead. And fellas who aren't slow, like, these lads are quick, and they were just kind of just seeing him rake away from him and kind of calling other people to help. He obviously got injured. I'd say he was slightly concussed after the hit, but what an unbelievable fill-up for them to get him back and get minutes into his legs. If you
lose in the first round of Ulster this year and you're one of the top 2 division teams, there's a chance you'll get Galway or Mayo in the qualifiers straight away. So the qualifiers aren't going to be a traditionally easy route for a team to have a few pipe cleaners and then arrive back in Croker for an All-Ireland quarter-finals. That's why the Ulster Football Championship is actually a massive handicap this year, more so than it has ever been, because, you know, you're playing non-stop Division 1 teams largely, or a team in some form in Cavan. So like, that's why it's just getting easier and easier for Kerry to get to an All-Ireland semi-final this year. Maybe they'll play somebody in the quarterfinals, perhaps one of the good Ulster teams.
That's the one unknown, really, isn't it? We can't predict that at all. It's
no. Yeah. And Tyrone, you know, I think one of the lads leaves the panel last week.
Paul Donaghy,
another. Like, I mean, a guy who was, you know, on how well he did last year, especially in the league. Okay, he didn't get a massive amount of minutes in the championship, but he still played. Like, he was definitely in your top 17, 19 players, and he's gone. So, you know, when you start to look down through that Tyrone, like I felt the last day they had their best 15 players on the pitch. Now they have the Donnellys to come in, they can filter around a little bit with that. They have one or two but you're definitely, there's 6. They've lost 7 or 8 guys now, who would only help, because you're definitely going to get injuries during the Ulster Championship. You possibly could get some suspensions. So all of a sudden you may lose 3 to 4. And you know, it's an easy thing to say, oh well, if a team had everyone back, but a team may not have everyone back, and that's where to win in All Ireland you need your lads who are 19, 20, maybe even 23, 24 on the panel in the league. They need to come through, and you always get a few bolters, lads who are, you know, nearly not heard of, if you get me, outside of the county, that they come through and they actually stick their hand up, and they make a big run during the championship. So, you know, for me, Tyrone, to start losing players in the periphery who are good players, especially in, like, Tyrone are a top 2, top 3 team, and you're saying there's another potential All-Ireland there. So there's definitely something very, very rotten going on, I think, in the camp, because if those guys are going... the man management, the ability to communicate with these fellas, to keep them on board, the ability to keep us all going towards the North Star, like, I don't think it's necessarily got enough airplay, the significance of all of those fellas pulling out, because, you know, if there were top 12 in the country, you go, okay, you know, we just got an All-Ireland, we were very, very lucky, and we're probably not in the shake-up this year, hence I can't do the commitment, I'm heading away, I'm doing this, blah blah blah, work pressures, whatever it is, but they're absolutely in the mix, and to lose all those guys, I think is definitely raises question marks over the mood in the camp, on what exactly is happening.
Is there a disconnect between that and the form, though? Because, like, I mean, I think there's questions about Kerry at the weekend because Tyrone were so good in Killarney the previous week. Is this something that catches up with them over a period of time, basically?
Not having the players?
Yeah, and not having that depth.
I think so. Like, I mean, it would have to, if they were coming through Leinster or if they were coming through Connacht, you might say, no, not necessarily so. But because they're coming through Ulster, you would think, you know, there's going to be some ding-dong battles. As I said, there could be a few suspensions, there could be different things going on. Everyone in Ulster is going to want to take a chip off them. They're there to be knocked down, and yet you can't even within the panel, you know, you can't kind of rotate guys. You can't give some fellas rest. You can't pull a fella off. Now, of course, they're still going to have a panel, but you're now dropping, your depth is dropping down to the next 7 or 8. Maybe you're having to pull some fellas in, and I just think I think, you know, maybe someone who knows it a bit better than I do from up there would say, listen, there's nothing to see here. It was just people making individual decisions around whatever it is, their quality of life or whatever it is, or commitments. But to lose, I think, was it 7 maybe, or 8?
There's a retirement in the middle of that as well. So they're not all kind of walking away in the middle of the year. You know, Chin McCann, I think, just had you know, I can see you reach the summit and you're like, I've had enough now, I can go. But I buy the point that it definitely... one would be unfortunate, 2 begins to look like something. But
you didn't see that, Ger. Like, you didn't see that. Like, Dublin didn't have retirements, I don't think, mid-season, you know, when they were in the shake-up for All Irelands. Yes, fellas, were after the year finished, you know, they thought about things and they said, listen, I'm walking away. But most of those guys held in because they realised, actually, you know, we're in a once-in-a-generation type team. There's going to be multiple opportunities to win All Irelands. And, you know, if you're part of that Tyrone setup, you have to be saying, you're looking around at the quality around you and saying, you know what?
Well, the impact the bench had, the impact the bench had last year. Like, the impact that the bench had last year was really significant in all the games.
Massive.
So, like,
Massive.
It got them through many of them. So there would have been an opportunity for some of those players to come on and switch games. I do want to talk a little bit about the game between Galway and Roscommon as well, and what that signifies for the Connacht Championship. If we're making some excuses for Mayo, do we need to make similar excuses for Galway?
You know what? That game could have went either way, really. In the shake-up, yeah, I know. Galway were 5 or 6 behind, and they came back, and they showed a lot of bottle to come back. They definitely weren't firing on all cylinders. He needs Walsh, he needs Comer back, because they're 2 of the pivotal players. They're obviously your 11 and your 14, and they tie everything together to the glue that makes that attack come together. You know, people will go on about Conroy yesterday. Conroy won't have it the same in other games, whereby, you know, even against Mayo, he's going to come up against two players who are very, very forward oriented. Like Ruan and Flynn were found out a bit yesterday when they had to turn and go back the other way, especially Ruan. Flynn not so much, because he had to go off injured, and he will put in a shift, but Ruan is very much forward oriented. He's very much, he wants to go. And if you look at a number of the incidents yesterday where Clifford and O'Hara were isolated, Ruan is coming back, but he never ever gets there. He never gets there to really help him and double up as a good midfielder should. So Conroy will have it a little bit difficult, a little bit different in the sense of he'll be running back more towards his own goal, but still he gave a masterclass yesterday. You know, Joyce, again, similar to what Horan will do, I don't think he will show all his cards as of yesterday. I think it meant more significance to probably Roscommon. But at the same time, Ger, you know, it's a championship, or sorry, it's a cup. You know, it's a trophy. Go and win it. You know, put your best foot forward. Galway haven't had an amazing time in Croke Park, you know, in the last number of years. So go and win a game there. They were within a shot. You know, the goal was masterstroke, but
I mean, also there was the umpire calls for Hawkeye, other umpire gives the point, they lose by a point in the end. I was like, is there, maybe we should have had the Hawkeye? Maybe was Hawkeye not there yesterday?
No, it was.
It was.
Yeah, it was used a couple of times in the second game. Because I didn't catch what happened there.
So there's a point that looked like it might have been wide.
Very late on.
I think it was the last Roscommon point.
Yeah, I remember. I was a bit confused about what happened there, yeah.
Put the gap to 3, and then they go down and kick 2 others.
Yeah.
And then it was, or maybe they only kicked 1 other. But whatever it was like, let's just have a look.
Yeah.
We have the technology, let's have a look.
Yeah, because I can't remember which game it was, but it was fairly used, I think, in the Saturday games. There was one particular umpire, I think he used it about 5 times. I don't know what he was looking at exactly, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's Roscommon, you know, will sit there and they'll say to themselves, okay, you know, we're on a nice side of the draw in the Connacht Championship. We're motoring well. I think Cunningham has brought a bit of steel into them. Now, again, you're conceding 20-odd points. That's not where you want to be for either team. And I think teams will look at it and say, okay, well, we can do the offensive part, okay, we know that, we can rake up high scores, but I always felt Roscommon's Achilles heel has always been their defensive setup, and Galway are that way. Like, if you score 20, Galway will try to score 24. Galway will very rarely try to shut down a game. You know, under Kevin Welch, they probably got a bit of that into them, but I think Joyce is very much more, you know, you score, we score type of an idea. But it's going to be a shootout against Mayo, you would imagine, and probably the team that ends up, you know, kind of getting that defensive set in a more efficient manner will probably come out the victor, because there's not a whole pile, you know, different, I think, from an offensive point of view for them. It's just going to be more about how well they defend.
Are Louth the exception to the rule that Leinster football is completely screwed? Are they the ones that are bucking the trend?
You know, it's funny, I was thinking about this yesterday, not particularly loud, but I was thinking about Leinster football. Like, you know, if things had gone slightly different, you would have ended up with still 2 teams in Division 1 next year, you know, so Kildare and Dublin. Okay, you end up with, say, 3 Connacht teams next year, which is big. I still think the standard is improving in Leinster. I think that, look, we're not going to go over old ground here because we've had it enough for years. But when you had such a dominant force, of course, and beating so many teams, and they were beating so many teams, there was only 1 or 2 teams that were getting anywhere close to them around the country. So most other teams would have been, if they were in Leinster, they would have got hockeyed as well by 7, 8, 10 points, the same as Meads were and Kildare was and everyone else. I'm avoiding the question on Louth here, haven't I? But no, it's. I think the standards are improving. I think Louth are showing it. Louth plays some great football. I thought Limerick were unlucky. Limerick were very, very good for large swathes of that game. I thought they moved the ball well. They've got some really good individual players. I thought they made a couple of strange substitutions on guys. I couldn't see whether they were injured or not, which I thought weakened the team a little bit. But Louth kept going. Very, very unfortunate turnover, just a kind of a quick hands type situation that ends up being the pivotal goal chance that comes. Guy takes it very, very well. You know, was very, very brave because the hand pass led him into a defender, and he never shirked the responsibility of taking it on. But you know, Mickey Harte has done an amazing job. People will say it, but from being hockeyed in their first game by Laois, and people saying, Jesus, this is going to look like a rough employment for Mickey. They tightened everything up. You know, they got the defensive set right, and you know, you even see the Limerick manager was kind of saying, listen, that's the way they play football, and that is the way they play football. Harte knows it, Devlin knows it, they know what works, and they're able to bring it in. But they've got some really nice individual talent up front. Louth have always had really good players, and you know, to be fair to them, that's a very, very successful first year straight off the bat for them.
And a quick word about Tip. Obviously, started the league disastrously. It looked like this was going to be another lost season for them, and then all of a sudden, they're Division 4 champions, and they've got a bit of wind in their sails.
Yeah, well, if you've I suppose you. Like, I mean, looking on it, you know, the game was actually, it was a good game. You know, it's amazing when you kind of go up the divisions, just the speed of play, obviously, it makes a big difference. You know, you've got just the speed of decision making, the ability to perform the skills improves or disimproves.
I obviously was... Yes, I got the result of that game wrong.
Yes, you did. Yeah, because you threw me there.
They do. They do.
But they hit the crossbar in the last second of the game.
They do have some momentum behind them.
Well, no,
it was a disastrous start, but obviously, yeah.
Well, they should have. They could have won it. They could have won it. Like, I mean, unbelievable chance in the last minute. Great chance in the last minute that rattles off the crossbar, comes back down. It was a Jeff Hurst type moment, bounces back out, and you're thinking, Jesus, and you know what? It could have gone either way. Cavan had a few chances, a few long range frees at the end to put a bit of daylight in it, but you always felt that Tip might get something. No, they'll be happy. Brilliant, getting promotion. And you know, when you think of Cavan and where they have been over the last number of years, it was important for them to start the ascendancy again, especially in the league.
Scarlet, good stuff. Anthony, thanks very much.
No bother, Ger.